How much is $5,000 here in the Philippines? Well, it really depends if you're talking about US dollars or Canadian dollars. If it's in the US currency, convert that into Philippine peso, that would be around 250,000 pesos, but it could be more. However, for Canadian dollar currency, it converts to around 200,000 pesos in the Philippines. And I remember before my first trip back to the Philippines in 2009, I used to carry about $5,000 Canadian. And it lasted me for 2 months in the Philippines. And mind you, I was not spending my money like, and $5,000 lasted me for about almost 2 months. But I was not spending the money like a one-day millionaire, and that's the reason why I was able to have that allowance for 2 months in the Philippines. And also, I traveled with a few family members, so they kind of helped me with the contribution when it comes to feeding the family and some neighbors. But yeah, if you're someone who wants to go to the Philippines and carry $5,000 with you and want to spend in the Philippines for a month, I believe that that is enough. It really depends on how you want to spend your money and what your lifestyle is. Other than that, Philippines is getting really, really expensive. So spend your money wisely. If you're spending 5,000 USD in 2 months in the Philippines, you're doing way too much. Yes, I agree with you. 5,000 is a lot of money depending on conversion rate. However, if you're a foreigner, again, if you are a foreigner who is going to the Philippines alone, not with a woman, alone, and wanting to live a simple life, then $5,000 is a lot of money for you. You can even make it last up to a year if you really want to, only if you will live a simple life. But if you're involving women in your life and live a crazy life in the Philippines, then that's not even gonna last you for a month. And here is the thing that most of you foreigners do not understand our Filipino culture. Filipino culture is all about family, and yes, there's pros and cons to it. Now, as for me, when I go to the Philippines and bring 5,000 Canadian dollars because I'm in Canada, and if I go there with a partner who is a foreigner, we can probably make that $5,000 Canadian last in over a month. However, if we are going to the Philippines without seeing or meeting any of my Filipino relatives, then yes, it would last us for at least 3 months or possibly more depending on our lifestyle. But since I'm a Filipina and I have a lot of relatives in the Philippines, then meeting and seeing my family and on top of that feeding them is only appropriate for me to make that $5,000 last for at least a month. Yes, it's a lot of money to make it last for a short period of time being in the Philippines, especially when I'm with my family. Since you don't really understand our culture, then it's easy for you to say that 5,000 is a lot of money for 2 months. The very first time I went to the Philippines back in 2009, yes, I spent a lot of money because I was feeding the neighbor here, family here, and also lending my money to the people who never returned my money back to me. But of course, along the way, you learn a hard lesson. And recently, my partner and I, who's a foreigner, went to the Philippines for about 22 days. We spent at least almost $4,000 Canadian. Canadian rate can vary too. Sometimes 40 pesos for $1, sometimes it's 41 point something, which is not really a lot, whereas Americans and Europeans have more advantage when it comes to the currency rate. When my partner and I was in the Philippines, we were not spending our money like crazy, going outings here, going outings there. Most of the time, we were traveling from here to there, visiting families. When we were traveling, we would travel with a lot of people to help us out carry stuff. And yes, we would pay for their bus fare. When we are eating, yes, we would pay for them. When we visited families or relatives, yes, we would feed them. There's at least 10 to 15 people in the house, and yes, we still have to feed them. I was not forced to not feed them. However, it was my choice to feed them because I like feeding people. I would rather that I feed people, relatives, or family rather than them asking me money or borrowing money without even returning it back to me. And a lot of Filipinos I know from the Western world who lives in the Western world would go back to the Philippines and visit their family and would bring 10, 15, $20,000 as their pocket money. And a lot of them would stay in the Philippines 2 weeks, 1 month, and they would live like a king, or they would spend their money like a one-day millionaire. And most of the time, they would use their credit cards to live like a one-day millionaire, and then they would come home to the Western world and work so hard having 2, 3 jobs. I don't do that. And I would rather just spend my money on the people for food, and that makes me happy, rather than lending my money to the people who will never pay me back. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, because if you're going to the Philippines and marry a Filipina and being surrounded by a lot of her relatives and family and friends, then yes, you will understand what I'm talking about. And as for now, if you don't want to spend a lot of money while in the Philippines, do not get involved Filipina if you want to save. Also, if you stay with your family, then no need to pay for hotel. The problem is the family have their hands out in the Philippines for free money. Yes, you are correct. It is always a cheaper option if you stay with the family. And yes, some families or relatives will always expect money from you, especially if they know that you are from the Western world and you have a lot of dollars in you. And my advice to those foreigners who wants to go to the Philippines and spend months in the Philippines, I would suggest you should rent a condo, a hotel, or an apartment, because it is way cheaper that way comparing to living or staying with your Filipinas family members. Because when you stay in a hotel, apartment, or a condo, you will end up saving a lot of money because it is cheaper to rent a place monthly rather than by day. And when you're paying per day, you will end up spending a lot of money. So might as well stay with your Filipinas relatives or family. When my partner and I went to the Philippines, we had a choice to stay in a hotel. But we realized that it's a lot of money to spend on just staying in the hotel for a few days. So we decided to stay at the relative's house and end up saving money. And rather than paying the hotel, we would rather use that money to feed my family, relatives, and friends. However, I did explain to my relatives that I did not come home so that I can give away my money. Otherwise, they can just eat the food that I am buying for them. And I ended up giving money to some of my relatives because they were helping us out. They were helping us in terms of cooking, cleaning, washing our clothes, and do a lot of things for us to make our life comfortable being in my relative. So I thought it's only appropriate for them to receive some money because they work hard for us. And if they're giving their time for us, obviously they deserve something. And some of my relatives would even want to borrow money and demand how much they want. And I said no. Again, we came to the Philippines not thinking that you're gonna end up borrowing money from us. If you want to eat, then eat. Other than that, I cannot lend you money because in my mind, you're never gonna pay me back. Because in the back of their mind, why would I want to pay you back when you make dollars and we make peso? So as for me, I would rather that my relatives will work or do some works for me. Then I would give them money because I'm basically buying their time. And on top of that, I keep reminding my family, hey, I'm on a budget, so don't think that I have a lot of money because I don't. Yes, I have some money, but it's for my allowance. It's for us to make it last until we leave the Philippines. Yes, there are times that you need to be generous, and there are times that you should not be generous with the money that you work hard for. Because at the end of the day, some relatives don't even deserve your money at all. I'm Filipino living in Canada like you. I'm lucky my relatives in the Philippines are well off. I'm the poor one. They welcome me in my family with open arms and doesn't anything in return. And yes, indeed, you are definitely lucky. I have met a lot of Filipinos here in Canada that families in the Philippines are well off. And most of them, they don't even have a problem to go back home in the Philippines because most of the time, their family in the Philippines are the one who offers money or pay for their ticket. But then when they go home, they don't even have to pay for anything because the family will take care of everything. And before, I get jealous all the time because I wish I could do the same thing, but unfortunately, I can't. And some of these people with well-off family in the Philippines, often they don't even have to work 2-3 jobs. And most of the time, they only work one job or sometimes even a part-time job. And of course, a lot of foreigners who married a Filipina that has a family in the Philippines that are well off, they're pretty lucky because every time they go to the Philippines, they don't have to spend anything. Well, maybe they do spend something, but not like crazy, unlike many other Filipinos or foreigners that goes to the Philippines and pays for everything. In a way, when we Filipinos end up going back to the Philippines, often it feels good when we feed our family or neighbor. And it makes you eat with them too and have fun and have conversation. Whereas a lot of foreigners here in the Western world, often they don't eat with their family. Most of the time, they eat in the room or they eat in front of the TV because it's not really part of their culture to eat together. And for us Filipinos and as part of our culture, it's very important for us to gather together and eat together and enjoy the food. So yeah, it is worth it to spend money on our family when it comes to food, because when you get to see their faces, you see their smiles, and it does make you feel so good. Just say no. Very simple. I'd rather stay in a hotel, have privacy. Yes, I agree with you. Most of the time, it's better to stay in a hotel for privacy and peace of mind. However, if you're a Filipino, it's really hard to not seeing your family and knowing that you're in the Philippines. And if you're a Filipino and if you want to stay with your family, as long as your families are not toxic and full of drama, then it is really fine to stay with your family. Other than that, if you are staying with your family and if they are full of toxicity, drama, and a lot of stress that they're giving to you, then yes, I would suggest stay in a hotel. You could at least have peace and quiet as well as privacy and less toxicity and drama from your Filipino families. As for me, the only two things that I don't really like staying with my families are, one is it's very hot. Number two, the Wi-Fi or the signal in the province is horrible. Whereas if you go to a hotel, there's at least Wi-Fi and the signal is okay. So yeah, that's the only downside. But hey, sometimes or most of the time, it's really nice to spend time with your family.